Aloha, everyone. Welcome to another episode of our Church College of Hawaii, BYU Hawaii Aloha Friday Alumni Podcast. We'd like to welcome you wherever you might be tuning in from, whether it's here in Hawaii or up in the mainland or down in the Pacific or Asia. We'd like to welcome all of our alumni, our students, as well as friends of alumni. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon in beautiful Hawaii. We have a special guest for you today, and we have a lot of fun things to talk about and be able to share with you. But before we do that, I just have a couple of announcements. First of all, I want to give a shout out and thank you again to our guests last week for our Friday alumni podcast. We had Keith Awai and Ellen Gay De La Rosa here. We had such a great time last week, Friday, and reminisce about the good old PCC, BYU days and Laia days. Wow, that was a lot of fun. And to have some of our folks joining in during that podcast last Friday. Also, just a reminder to all of our alumni and our students and friends of alumni to make sure you go into Ohana Network to either create or update your profile. You can go to ohana.byuh.edu in order to be able to update or create your profile. Again, it's so important to be in there because once you go into Ohana Network, that means you're giving permission to anybody within the system to communicate with each other, to connect with each other. So as you know, as we work here in the educational institution of BYU Hawaii, we cannot share confidential information, which is including student contact information. But when students, alumni, and friends of alumni are in Ohana Network, then they communicate freely and be able to connect, talk about opportunities for jobs or advice for graduate school and so forth. So we highly encourage you to come in there and be able to connect with our alumni internationally as well as domestically. So I invite you to do that. Okay, so those are the only couple of announcements that we have. It's almost the end of October, and we got a lot of fun things coming up towards the end of this year, and hope you all are doing well during this pandemic and staying safe. So at this time, without any further ado, we'd like to bring on our very special guest today, Alan Walker. So aloha, Alan.
Aloha.
So good.
I don't know about the special part, but I'm here. Yeah.
You are special. All of our alumni are special. So good to have you here with us. Before we go on, Alan, I just wanted you to take a few minutes to introduce yourself to our audience. You know, some of them may not know you, or some of you haven't seen you in a long time. So they're probably wondering, is that really Alan? So, they haven't seen you since those Laia days. So if you want to just take a few minutes to do that, that'd be great.
Sure. So as it says on the little banner underneath me, I was at BYU Hawaii, studying there from 1984 to 85, then went on a mission to Japan, and then 88 through 91, and graduated in 91. I never intended to do this, but I ended up sticking with the Polynesian Cultural Center till today. I've been there for 33 years. With the exception of a mission for 3 years to New Zealand, which we just returned from about a year ago. I've worked in several areas, but predominantly in the sales and marketing for the Polynesian Cultural Center. Initially, it was in the Japan sales area, since I served my mission in Japan and still maintain my Japanese language skills. But now, today, I actually work out of the Laia office and not Waikiki, and I'm in charge of the strategic and development department and also research. And so we tackle research projects with the marketing team, and we look into how we can better serve the guests that come to the Polynesian Cultural Center and try to find out what we can do to improve. I kind of head that up, and also I oversee the reservations department. We do have Frida Talapapa that runs it, but I work closely with her to make sure she has her resources. And I also do all the transportation contracts with Roberts Hawaii, so that make sure that we get guests out here on the bus. So I kind of have a hodgepodge of things that they have me do at the PCC. Currently live on the other side of the island in Eva Beach. Been there for 25 years. And So I make the commute out to Laie every once in a while. It's a nice commute, no traffic. Go around the North Shore through the pineapple fields, and as I head up to work and back. And right now I'm serving as a ward temple and family history leader in my home ward in Ewa Beach Second Ward. But I had the opportunity to serve as the stake president of the Waipahu Hawaii stake and as a bishop of the Ewa Beach Ward and a couple other things before we served as mission president and companion, my wife and I, in the New Zealand Auckland mission. But we're back home and just enjoying the Aloha life.
All right. Yes. Well, they surely keep you out of trouble by giving you all these things to do at PCC and at the church, huh? So that's great.
Well, I figure that's what the Lord figured out with me. Just got to keep me busy. That's the only way to keep me safe.
Oh, that's wonderful. Just want to let you know, Alan, throughout our podcast today, we have some people chiming in. I think on your computer there, you might be able to see some comments that flows in or some chats. So I think we have some folks already on. And we have the BYU Hawaii CCH alumni Aotearoa chapters just saying hello to you. And we'll get to some of those throughout our program today, and some of the folks that'll be saying hello to you and offering their comments as well. So what a wonderful opportunity for us today. So I know you provided some photos for us. We got quite a bit to go through. And I was going to ask you a question, but I'm going to use the slide instead because I think it tells us, the audience, and all of us the opportunity to get to know you a little bit better. So tell us a little bit about, where your family came from and how you folks got here to beautiful Laie.
There's a snapshot of Moana Street right there. No, that's Winnipeg. Yeah, my parents are both from Canada. They lived in a Latter-day Saint community in southern Alberta and grew up there. And then my dad graduated from BYU Provo and then got a master's degree from Provo and then eventually got a doctorate degree at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, Illinois. And then when I was 4 years old, I was born in Provo when he was at Provo and lived with him while he was getting his doctorate in Illinois, obviously. But when I was 4, we moved back to Canada. My dad got his first job as a English literature professor at the University of Winnipeg in Manitoba. And it is deemed the coldest North American metropolitan. It is cold. And the winters were 6 months long. We had just nasty blizzards frequently. And this is what would happen. You get a blizzard and it would just cover everything. And it was cold. And summers were only about 6 weeks long. And they were hot. I remember them being hot. My elementary school years were all in Canada. And then I can remember when I was 11 years old, my dad came home one day and he said, "We're going to move." And all the kids were gathered together. We're only 5 at that time. We ended up with the 6th one that was born in Hawaii. And he said, "We're moving to Hawaii." He got offered a job by President Shumway, who was the dean of the English department at that time, to serve as a assistant professor of English literature at BYU Hawaii. And so we moved to Laie in 1978. I was 11.
Wow.
Right from 6th grade in elementary school in the Commonwealth programs of Canada to Kahuku Intermediate in 1978.
Well, yeah. You were blessed, man. That was good.
Yeah, we used to tease my dad because we'd tell him, "Hey, he got the offer in January. We said, you didn't even pray about it. You just accepted it." That cold weather drove us out, but we still have connections to Canada. We love it, but we prefer the weather in Hawaii. That's for sure. So,
well, for some of us, Alan, that are from Samoa, where exactly is Alberta? Is that above Montana or above New York?
So Alberta, where my parents are from, is right above the Montana border.
Okay.
But Winnipeg, where you see these pictures, it's above North Dakota. You hear North and South Dakota, you think cold. Winnipeg is even further north, above North Dakota. It's even colder. So that's where we were. That's where I lived my elementary years. It's really in the middle of nowhere, but it's a city, and they just built the temple and just opened the temple there. Would have never imagined that when I was there because it was only a district with just 4 small branches. Wow. Today there's a stake and they just built the temple.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, so you traded your snow for the sand and the surf and sun, right?
That's right.
Okay, so we'll go to the next slide here. Okay, wow, it's a nice photo.
Yeah, that's a shot of our family right after we arrived. I think it's probably about August of 1978. That's in our home on the corner of Moana Street and Kulanui. That's right on that faculty row. It's the real corner home. Right across from where we lived is now where the Johnsons had their home. Alika Lowe and his family used to live in that house right across from us. But we were in that house until my parents finished their time in Laie. My dad retired in 2006 or 2007, and they were in that home for that entire time. But that's where I grew up, went to high school and intermediate school, and member of the Laie Second Ward.
Oh, wow. Was that only one steak at that time, Alan? Or
When we first arrived, it was only one steak, and then about a year after we arrived, they split the steak and they created the Laie North Steak. Yeah, so when we arrived, Bill Cravens was our stake president, and then they divided the stake and created the Laie North Stake,
wow.
and divided our ward because our ward used to the Laie Second Ward was huge and went all the way to where the temple is, and they cut that in half. But I have great memories of going to our ward camp, Kikala Beach, and just all kinds of amazing experiences growing up there in Kahuku, in the Laie area, going to Kahuku High School.
Wow, that's amazing. From 1978 on, huh? Okay.
Yep.
Let's see, next photo. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the house. People might have recognized it when they walked by, but it's right there in the corner of Kulunu. I took this picture right before I went on the mission. I actually took this photo, a hard copy of the photo, and the next one that we'll have, and I put it in a Book of Mormon that we'd go around when I was a missionary in Japan, and we'd show people where my home was, and I scanned this and got this electronic copy, but it's not there anymore. These houses are all torn down and replaced by the duplexes they have in Faculty Row now. But this was the old days in Laie, and then this was the street. This is looking from my house all the way down to the Laie Stake Center, and just look at those palm trees. They're not there anymore. I remember one time we had a Japanese film crew. They were filming a commercial, and they came and they paid each of the people that lived on the street about $20, and they spent about 3 hours driving up and down on a truck with a couple of models in the truck that they were filming. They wanted to capture all those palm trees around them and make that part of their commercial. So it was quite the sight, but it's changed. It doesn't look like that anymore. But this was home when I was growing up.
Yeah. Yes. Now that I remember this street the way it was like that. It's totally different now with a lot of driveways and duplexes around the area now. I'm sure you've seen it when you were here last.
That's right.
All right. Let's see what's next. Okay.
Yeah, so story goes that we graduated from Kahuku High School in 1984, and I had to make a decision where I was going to go to university, and I just felt I wanted to stay close to home, and it felt good, and made the decision that I would enter BYU, and so I did in the fall of 1984. That was my first year at Brigham Young University. So I graduated in 84. We did a quick trip to the mainland to visit family and came back just in time to start school in September of 1984, beginning my freshman year.
Oh, okay.
But I showed this just to prove to everyone, I'm a local boy.
Yes, you are. Red Raider, yeah, awesome.
Red Raider for life, yeah.
Now, were you one of the oldest children, or were you in the middle of the pack, or what were you?
I was the oldest of six. The youngest was born at Kahuku Hospital after we arrived. So when we came, there were 5 of us. But I'm the oldest, and then I was the only one to graduate from BYU Hawaii out of the 6. The rest went on to other schools, but I chose to be true to the Seasiders.
All right, that's awesome. It's nice to see that picture of graduation at the PCC. That's memorable.
That's right. That's where we used to do it before the Cannon Activity Center.
You graduated to go PCC, and then you're still working at PCC.
I just can't get away. I just can't leave.
That's right. Let's see. Okay, now we're getting to some good pictures.
Yeah. So I didn't go and work at the Polynesian Cultural Center right away. I didn't work for the first year or so when I was at BYU, but see, well, I was 17 when I graduated because I turned 18 in October. And so I had a year and a half before I could go on a mission. And I was still kind of, on the fence whether I would serve or not. And I was really nervous about the thought of going and standing in front of people and talking. I really had a fear of speaking in front of people. And of all the jobs that I would consider applying for, the last one would have been canoe guide, because you have to stand up in front of people and talk. But when I decided I want to work, I want to save up some money. I wanted to be able to have a little spending money and do a few things when I was at BYU Hawaii. And when I went to apply at the Polynesian Cultural Center, the only thing they had an opening for, I thought I would do custodial. They didn't have any custodial openings. The only thing that was open was the canoe boys. And I don't know what it was, but I went on a whim and I applied and I got hired. And this changed my life. This is part of the experience that made a difference. I was able to gain great confidence by being able to stand on a canoe. Of course, I wasn't facing the people, so that made it a little bit easier as I was standing behind them, but able to go out on a canoe on a scripted tour, picking up the jokes, the same jokes they use today. Those jokes are 58 years old. The center just turned 58 years old, and those jokes have been around for about that long, but they work. And, and I was able to go out and do these canoe tours, and I could make people laugh. I could be the instrument through which they could enjoy the canoe experience. And that built great confidence in me and gave me the courage to be able to stand up in front of people. And that made a difference. That made it easier to make the decision to go serve a mission. Wow. But Eddie, I'll tell you, the thing that really made a difference was BYU Hawaii. My first year I was at school, I was taking the religion classes like everyone has to do. But I'll be honest with you, even though I graduated from seminary and grew up in a family that was faithful in the gospel, I didn't really know if it was true. I was just kind of working on borrowed testimonies from my parents and others. And I winged my religion classes. I didn't study. I didn't read them. I just remember the things I learned. I don't recommend this to anyone, but that's what I did. And so I was able to wing the classes and score B's in like the Book of Mormon classes and so forth. And I thought that was good enough. But I wasn't growing spiritually. And then I took the New Testament class, and the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John course was simple because, the stories of Jesus, you learned those when you're growing up in the church. But then I took the latter half of the New Testament. I had Dr. Thornock. I don't know if many of you remember him. And he was our professor. He was magnificent. But I couldn't wing that class because that's the book of Acts all the way to the book of Revelation. And I didn't know that was a lot more difficult. I had to actually read the scriptures. And for the first time, I think really in my life, I made a real applied effort to study the scriptures. And towards the end of that semester, if I didn't, I wouldn't pass the class. And towards the end of the semester, I can remember Brother Thornock standing, and the class was in the planetarium. And he was standing there at the front of the class, and we were studying James chapter 1. And he said to us, this is where we have that famous verse that Joseph Smith read that led him to have his first vision. And he said, that wasn't just for Joseph Smith. That's for all the sons and daughters of God. That's for you. That's what he told us. And he said, I challenge you. If you don't know if this is true, and you've been studying and reading in this class, go home. Go home tonight, kneel by your bed, and ask God if it's true. And he said, if you'll ask with faith, believing that God will hear and answer your prayers, he'll answer you. And because that was the promise of James 1 verse 5, right? If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. And I went home that night. I didn't really have a plan to do it, but as I got ready for bed, I thought, well, I've been reading this New Testament, and I'd received that challenge, that invitation from Brother Thornock. So I knelt by my bed, and I asked, almost nonchalantly, but I asked, God, is this really true? And as soon as I asked the question, I was enveloped by a just most magnificent and powerful spirit that was just a spirit that, we describe it with words of love and peace and joy, but it was overwhelming. And I received my first powerful spiritual witness that there was a God in heaven. He heard prayers, And he answered my prayer. It was an affirmative that, yes, it's true. And so I knew that that New Testament was the Word of God, and it testifies of Christ over and over and over again. And so I knew for the first time, not relying on anyone else, but having my own spiritual witness through the power of the Holy Ghost, that Jesus is the Christ. And that changed everything. I had some repenting to do. I wasn't a bad young youth, but I did silly things like youth do, and I needed to change. And then I decided, look, I winged that Book of Mormon class. I had a dilemma. I knew that the Bible was the Word of God, but I didn't know for sure which was the true church, just like Joseph's dilemma.
Yeah.
Because you can't get that witness from just the Bible alone. But I knew of Moroni's promise, and so for the next 3 months, I decided I was going to study that Book of Mormon like I should have when I was taking the class. I took up my old study resource books and the Book of Mormon, and I did a real thorough study from cover to cover. And at the conclusion of that study, I knelt by my bed again and I asked God, following the counsel from Moroni and Moroni 10 verses 3 through 5, if that book was not true. And I had almost an identical, powerful spiritual witness at that time that gave me for myself a knowledge that the Book of Mormon is the Word of God. And because I knew that Joseph Smith was a prophet of God, was the prophet of the dispensation of the fullness of times. I knew that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was God's kingdom on the earth. Mm-hmm. But then I had another witness. And this is why I titled our little chat today as Sacred Ground, because this all took place on the grounds of BYU Hawaii. It was because of what happened there this happened. And to me, it's sacred ground. But when I decided I'm going to go on a mission, I know the church is true. I know that it's God's kingdom on the earth. I'm going to do that mission. I wasn't wavering anymore. So I took a mission preparation class. I can't remember who the professor was. I just remember he was a missionary, a senior missionary that was teaching the course. And in the middle of that course, a significant event took place in the church. The prophet at that time passed away, and that was Spencer W. Kimball.
Yes.
And I was sitting in that class, and our professor was standing, and he said, I challenge you to find out for yourself by going to God in prayer if Ezra Taft Benson, the newly sustained president of the church, is truly a prophet of God. And I knew God could answer prayers because he had answered my 2 previous prayers. And so I went home that night and I did what that professor challenged us to do. I knelt by my bed and I asked him, is Ezra Taft Benson your chosen prophet? And I tell you, Eddie, and everyone that's listening, all 5 of you, that I received a powerful spiritual witness, a third witness, that Ezra Taft Benson, was truly a prophet of God. And I've not had similar strong, powerful witnesses like that since, but I've learned to be able to better recognize the subtle impressions of the Spirit since then. But those 3 powerful spiritual witnesses that I received were all because of my enrollment at BYU Hawaii, because of the influence of professors that were inspired, and because I was on sacred ground. I was on ground where the Spirit can touch people in ways that normally maybe are not possible. And to me, BYU Hawaii and the Polynesian Cultural Center and the entire community of Laie, even stretched out to Kahuku, Haula, that whole North Shore, that area, that is literally sacred ground. And for me, it will always be sacred. And maybe that's why I've never left. I live on the other side of the island, maybe because it's just too spiritually overwhelming for me to be in Laie all the time. I don't know. But, I make sure I get to the temple regularly, but I can tell you that changed me forever. And I am forever grateful for inspired professors and invitations that were extended to students that maybe didn't quite know for themselves yet. And my invitation to those that listen in is, if there is anyone that doesn't know, this isn't something that's just made available to a few. It's made available to all. You can receive a spiritual witness. Now, those witnesses, I've learned over time, come in different ways to different people. But for me, they were powerful spiritual 2x4s over the head. I think maybe I just couldn't recognize the Spirit, the subtle impressions like I should have. And so the Lord figured, well, for this one, bring out that spiritual 2x4. Let's whack them over the head. And BYU Hawaii was the right place for that to happen. But then I can remember, Eddie, walking home after a day at the PCC, pushing those canoes and walking from the employee exit across the fields, heading to my home on the corner of Moana Street and Kulanui. And I would talk to God. I would just call out to God and talk to him. And if there was anyone else around, they probably thought I was crazy because I talked to him out loud. But I could really feel my relationship with him grow.
Well,
but here's
that's a wonderful story, Alan. I mean, to hear you being raised in the church and all of this, had to find your own testimony yourself and not dependent upon others. It's a good advice to all of us, whether we are converts to the church or born into the church, that we still have to find out for ourselves. So I really appreciate your insight and your testimony on that, and to help others who may be in the same stage of their life where that they're trying to find out whether it's true or not, and some of the things they're learning. I think it's a great guidance that you're providing today.
Well, it's certainly a blessing for me, and if it can be a help to anyone to be able to hear that, then that's certainly something I like to share.
I like these pictures because, especially the one on the bottom left, when you're doing your 10.0 dive action there in the back of the canoe. That's pretty good.
We staged this one. Today, if I was at the PCC and I tried to pull this off, I'd probably get fired. But
yes,
back in those days, there was a little bit more leniency when it came to things like this. And it's probably not a good thing, but I had a friend of mine take the picture. Those are real tourists in the boat, and they got the tour. But we thought we'd throw that in. They got a kick out of the fact that their captain couldn't stay on the boat. But
yeah, that was pretty good how you climbed back on the canoe and still see the rippling rings around the lagoon. And you got back on the canoe there on the bottom right picture. Pretty good.
And you can see from these shots here too. We had surrounded by wonderful students that were also at BYU Hawaii at the time, and you got Corey up there, and the just newly called Bishop Tollefson.
Yes.
Kanamu, and then Lotu down there on the right. They were great friends to me. They made me feel just as part of the crew, because I kind of thought, I'm a haole. I'm going to be up there pushing the canoes. All the boys that were pushing at that time, they were the local boys, or they were from Samoa. Remember Hank and all of his antics and jokes. I know he also served as all of them ended up serving as bishops and things of that nature. Just amazing influences. We had returned missionaries. Corey went to the MTC about a week before I did, and then I actually flew over with Van Auna and Eddie Buddha Kamaoha together. We entered the MTC about the same time. We were all there at the MTC together. They played an influence in my life, and I really enjoyed it. That's my favorite job till today, and I've done lots of different things at PCC, but the canoe guy job will always be my most favorite.
Yeah. So all you PCC workers out there, enjoy your job, because you probably won't find a fun job like that ever again. So enjoy while you have it, right, Alan?
That's right. We take it for granted when we're students, but boy, I've talked to so many people that after years and years later, they'll say, "Oh, I remember those days at the PCC. Those are just my fondest memories." I'm still there. I'm still at the PCC. I'm still making fond memories, but this canoe tour experience was just top notch.
Wow. Yeah, you can't leave. There's more of the crew.
Yeah, this is my mission farewell. Just a few days before flying off to Provo MTC, and there's a lot of familiar faces from people that were around as students in 1986. But they all came to my farewell. I think we had Kanamu sing, and I don't know if the others sang because I don't know how well they all sung. But
that's a nice picture of all of you. Wonderful. Okay, let's see. All right, here's the mission.
Yeah, that spiritual witness, those three that I received when I was at BYU Hawaii, made all the difference. That helped me to stay the track, because as all full-time missionaries know, missions are hard. If you're going to strive to do the right thing, they are difficult, because you face rejection day after day, right? And there's a lot of hard work, great memories, and it's extremely rewarding. But to have that testimony, it just helped me to propel forward and be able to do the things that I needed to do, and to learn a difficult language that was very foreign to me. I maintain it till today. It's a special gift to have a new language that you can speak, and I didn't know it was going to bless my life. I told you I worked Japan sales for a long time, and because of my language ability that I was gifted with as being able to serve a mission in Japan, I was able to work at the Polynesian Cultural Center beyond being a canoe guide, and use that and travel to Japan over 80 times for the PCC.
Wow. So when you got the call, were you surprised that you were going over to Japan for your mission?
Yeah, I was, because I had a dream before my mission. And here's what I've learned. I've learned that Polynesians have the gift of dream. Haoles, not so much. So I had a dream before I went on my mission that I was going to be called to Argentina.
Wow.
And it was very clear in my dream. And so I was telling everyone, I'm going to Argentina. And then I open up my call, and it's Nagoya, Japan. So unless I'm wrong, Argentina and Japan are in two very different areas.
Yeah, yeah. That's what you get for thinking about Argentina. They send you the opposite direction.
Yeah, so I mean, I love Japan. I didn't anticipate that I would serve there, but it was a great blessing to be there. And of course, that influenced my life. I mean, what I did for work, who I married, who my children are, everything was influenced because of that mission. And it was a great experience. But it was just a break for me in the middle of school, because once that was over, I was going to be back at BYU Hawaii and working on my bachelor's.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the next photo.
So when I get home and again, going back to BYU Hawaii, one of the first things that happens to me that was quite a blessing is I was at the library. And one of my friends was a recent returned missionary from the other side of the island. He was a local boy, and we were just good friends. We just met that semester, but we became good friends, and we had things in common because we both served in Japan. And one day I'm in the library, and he says to me, "You see that girl over there?" And there was a couple of young Asian girls that were sitting down at the couch near the reception area, where they used to have the newspapers back in those days, and the sister missionaries were talking to them. And he says to me, "You see that one girl there?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "She's the prettiest Japanese girl on campus." That's what he told me. And I said, "I don't think she's Japanese," because I knew all the Japanese students. I hung around with them. I got involved with the Japan Club. We sang in the culture night with the Japan Club. Bobby Okoye put together the rendition. We sang with that, took second place. And I thought I knew all the Japanese students. She was in the Japan Club. I'd seen her. I said to him, "I think she's Chinese." And he said to me, No, she's Japanese. Trust me. And so I got a little bit closer, and I could hear one of the sister missionaries was from Japan, and she was conversing with this young student in Japanese. So yeah, she was Japanese. And I didn't say anything to her, but I thought, oh, she is cute. Later on, I was back at the library a couple of weeks later, and I went up to the second floor, because that library is where you go socialize, right?
Yeah.
Socialize back in those days. And I went up there. It was in the afternoon, and there she was. She was studying on the second floor. You remember they had those cubicles the wooden cubicles they used to have up there on the second floor, and she was up there studying away, working hard on homework. I was just there to socialize, and I just walked up to her and just got the courage, and I just, for the very first time, talked to her, and I said to her in Japanese, "Are you Japanese?" Which is probably the stupidest thing to ask someone Japanese, because if they weren't Japanese, they wouldn't understand it, right? But I asked her, and she was kind enough to respond, and we had a conversation, and then her boyfriend showed up.
Wow.
Well, it was her ex-boyfriend, but he asked me to move out and leave at the moment because he didn't like the fact he didn't speak Japanese. He was from the Philippines. Sorry, Chris, but we're talking in Japanese, didn't know what was going on, and he wasn't too appreciative of my being there, and so he dismissed me without any further wait, and off I went. But later on, I found out that they did break off, and she was a usher at the Polynesian Cultural Center, and I was working when I returned home because I couldn't get a canoe guide position. They were all taken, so I worked for Van Nauna over at Shop Polynesia, which was under Host Marriott at the time, and I would occasionally have the assignment of taking the VHS and slides and running down the stairs to the bottom of the Pacific Theater right by the stage. And at intermission, they would put the spotlight on us and say, "We're now selling video cassettes and slides of the Polynesian Cultural Center evening show." And that was my job. And so I'd see her there as an usher, and I made some arrangements to make sure I was on the right portal where she would be working one night. And before I ran down to display my slides and VHS and audio cassette tapes, I asked her out and didn't wait for an answer. I timed it so it was right at the end of the Tahitian section, so I could run down. And I didn't have enough guts to hear the answer right away, so I ran down and held up the slides and video cassettes, wondering what she would say when I finished the intermission selling pitch. And she said yes. So the end result of that was that we began to date and court. She was not yet a member of the church. She'd been at BYU Hawaii for 4 years, and she'd gone on, had the lessons once and began to take the lessons again. And I wasn't involved with that. And suddenly, I think on our second date, she said, "Will you baptize me?" And that was kind of out of the blue. And I said, "Sure." And she said, "Will you confirm me?" And so I said, "Yeah, I'll do that too." And so in 1988, I think it was in late April, she got baptized and became a member of the church. And we waited a year before we got married, because we wanted to get married in the temple, and she was a new convert, and you have to wait a full year.
Right.
But so here, BYU Hawaii, sacred ground for me again, Eddie. I mean, that's where I met my eternal mate. Was able to, although I didn't play much influence in her being baptized, we did. She was an accounting major, graduated today. She's works for a Japanese firm here in Hawaii and is their controller. She makes more money than I do, Eddie. I'll tell you that right up front.
Yeah, I know the feeling. So good. Wow, that's such wonderful stories. You know how you came about to meeting your wife, and going on your mission, and all these people that have had influences and pivotal moments in your life. That's amazing. All these stories and connections that you have made up to this point. Let's see. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this is her right after she got baptized. Her story was that when she first arrived at BYU Hawaii, she wasn't a member, but everyone went to church on Sunday, so she did. And even though she wasn't a member, she went every week. And everyone just figured she was a member because she came each week. But she didn't join for 4 years, but she was there. But after she got baptized, she was in Bishop Evans' ward. And that's a picture of him with his family there in the front. And she's there. She's in the second row off to the left, but we just thought I'd throw it in here. There might be some people that are going to watch this that are in that picture, because there's quite a number of them. That's a single student ward. This is before we got married. And Bishop Evans became President Evans, and he was the president of the married student stake for about 5 years. Great man, and appreciate his positive influence. But that was her ward.
Alan, as you talk about sacred ground, this place, for us that have been brought up in this area, we know how special it is. And through my work since I've been back home, and visitors come on campus, whether they bring a high school group or elementary group or just bringing their families, they also feel something that's different here. And I don't need to tell them about it. They already know. They tell me, they say, "Wow, there's something different about this place." And, we know what it is, and they know what it is, but they know and they feel that once they step foot on this campus and PCC and the temple grounds, to see these visitors standing there just gazing and looking at the temple, thinking, "Wow, this is really nice. This is really special." So we know that the Spirit of the Lord is working with everybody that has come here. And as you look back at the groundbreaking address by President David O. McKay and many others that have had key roles in bringing the gospel here, they knew what was going to happen before we realized all of that. So I am so grateful to be a part of this opportunity to work here in the university and be able to serve our students and our community and many others that step foot on our campus. So grateful.
Yeah, I'm truly grateful too, and I know that of that spirit that you speak of. The Polynesian Cultural Center just recently hired a celebrity chef that's well known for being on television and so forth. But the reason why he agreed to join the Pounders crew and be the executive chef at Pounders was because of what he felt when he came to the Polynesian Cultural Center and was in this area in Laie. He could feel something, and he said, "I want to be a part of this." So he was willing to make some significant changes in his life to be able to be a part of the Polynesian Cultural Center. So it's still at work even to today. And I know when people visit the Polynesian Cultural Center, they feel something. They may not know what they feel. It does feel familiar, but they feel something special. And it is truly a powerful missionary tool. It's just, they're feeling the influence of the Spirit. They're feeling the familiarity of the Father and the Son. And they don't recognize that this is what they had in the premortal life, but that's what they feel in Laie. I feel it too. Maybe that's why I live in Eva Beach, so that I can get out there and feel it. Because if you're there all the time, sometimes you can take it for granted.
Yeah, right. That's a good point. Well, it's certainly a gathering place, a special place for all of us. I'm going to take a little pause here, Alan. I know, through your upbringing, you had mentioned earlier, you talked about some of the guys that you grew up there on the street in Moana. But I wanted to let's see if I can do this with the help of my students here. Not able to do this, but I'm going to try and see if we can. We have a special guest that we wanted to say hello to you. So let me see. First of all, let me do that. Recognize this guy, Alan?
Is he allowed to be on the?
We had to do a really intense interview this morning to make sure that he was cleared.
If he's related to Aaron, I guess he's okay.
So let's see. Are you there? Can you hear us, Jeff?
Hey, hear you now. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we could barely hear you, but bring it up a little bit.
All right.
Yeah.
Is that any better?
Perfect.
Hear you loud and clear.
Say hello to this guy.
How's it going, Alan? Haven't seen you for a long time. We emailed relatively recently, but as far as laying eyes on each other, it's been a number of years, I would say.
Yeah, it's been a long time. But you're always shooting basketballs. That's all I remember.
Sometimes at your house. So when did you graduate from Kahuku, Alan? Were you 84 or 83?
I was 84. Yeah.
84 with my sister Angela. That's right. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
We were we graduated together. I remember her well. I had a crush on her when I was in the 7th and 8th grade, but don't tell her that because it doesn't no longer applies. But.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, your younger brother, Aaron, who was just a little kid when we were there, ended up serving with me when I was a bishop as my executive secretary. And then he went on to be the stake president there in Laie, follow the footsteps of your dad, too. So, but your dad hired my dad. So there's all these connections, right?
Yep. And I was classmates with your sister, Sherry.
That's right.
Same grade. So I remember when the Walkers moved in, they moved in from the wild northern country of Manitoba.
That's right.
Wasn't it Winnipeg? Yeah, it was.
That's right.
I never met anybody from Manitoba before, so it was kind of a new thing. A new thing comes to Laie from a strange land.
Yeah, well, if you recall, we brought a whole bunch of hockey sticks with us. I don't think anyone had seen those before either. And there were some times that we would play off in the driveway in front of that house there on the corner of Alamoana and Kulanui, and we introduced it. The Honolulu Star Bulletin back in those days even took it and put it on the front page, and it got picked up by the AP Press. Hockey in Canada. That was before there was the ice rink in Honolulu. So we brought that with us. But there was no ice to skate on. So
I remember going and playing hockey a time or two over there, and you were an older guy. So, when you're, when you're, especially at that age, 2 years of age difference is a lot. So Alan was nice. I never remember him doing anything mean. So I think he tolerated all this young punks. Maybe he was trying to convert us to hockey. But
It didn't work.
Yeah, it was fun. I do remember it kind of had a little bit of counterculture sense to it. I didn't understand what that was at that time, but I think I sensed it nonetheless, that there was a little bit of counterculture type meaning in that environment. You were just doing what you loved, but Eddie, so if you want to send the link to the other guests you want to bring, he didn't get the link either, Eddie. So send that link, Eddie.
Yeah, we're working on that to send it to him.
Okay.
So she'll be joining us soon. For those of you in the audience, this is Jeff Shumway from those old days in Laie and growing up with Alan and others. So grateful to have him chime in and be able to share some thoughts about Alan.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Jeff. My daughter worked for him as an assistant, a teacher's assistant when he was up there at BYU Provo. I remember that.
Well, I can. So I knew Alan. He was a couple of years older than me, but I'd say I knew him well. But I think you went on your mission, and then when you came home, I was on my mission. And then by the time I came home, I think you were married. I didn't get home till August of '89. Were you already married by then?
Yeah, we married in May '89. So we were in Temple View Apartments. Did that for 2 years.
Yeah.
Greatest apartments on the face of the earth, right? Alumni.
I agree. I was there not long after that. But anyway, so I really never, our time sort of after high school shifted. But I did have his daughter years later. There's a young woman named Misa Walker in my world history class at BYU, and she aced it. And I don't know how we made the connection, but we made the connection that she was Alan's daughter. And so I can attest that him and his wife raised a great daughter, and she did so well in my class. I asked her to be my teaching assistant. That's usually how I get TAs for future semesters. I'll pick people that did really great. And so that was a treat. So I can attest that they raised a great daughter, smart, hardworking, organized, all the things you need for a great teaching assistant. So good job, Alan, and your wife. What's your wife's name?
Harumi. Yeah. Well, thank you. And she loved that time that she worked for you, Jeff, and she just raved about your teaching skills and all that. And I thought, of course, he's a Shumway. All Shumways have this teaching skills. Yeah.
Well, maybe Walkers exaggerate a little bit too. Maybe she has the gift of exaggeration a little. Another thing I'll say, so Alan was never, I never remember him being mean. And, when older kids are nice to you, it means a lot, it's because, sometimes older kids are mean. I try to tell that to my kids. I'm like, if you're nice to little kids, they'll remember you forever. So I remember Alan being nice. And Alan also, at least from my perspective, Alan's parents were kind of cool. Not everybody, not all old people were cool, but Alan's parents, from my perspective, were kind of, they were on the edge of cool, especially mom, especially on the edge of cool. And for a teenager, that means she was pretty cool for a parent, So.
Well, I'll let my dad and mom know they're still out there in Orem. They're just around the corner. They'll be appreciative of that, Jeff.
Yeah, we need to have them over. I was talking to Sherry, actually a number of months ago now. But yeah, we got to have them over for dinner. My parents live 90 seconds away from me, so.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I can talk about your dad forever because I served as a stake president in the Waipahu Hawaii stake when he was the Area 70, serving our area here in Hawaii. And I'd sit in trainings every 3 months or so with him. And we all know how great President Shumway is, but to sit there and be trained, it was a 3-4 hour trainings we would do on Saturday mornings, and it seemed like 30 minutes and it was over. It was just an amazing experience to be with your dad. And I enjoy his Facebook posts now. He puts those out, and they're just amazing and uplifting and edifying. I don't know if, Eddie, you've seen any of
Yes.
Shumway's posts, but
Yes.
Boy, it brings back memories. But that, to be able to sit at the foot of a 70 with that ability to teach. I can remember presiding over a Tongan multi-stake conference held at the Waipahu Hawaii stake and he was the guest speaker. And it was all in Tongan. I didn't understand a word, but I could see he had everyone on the edge of their seats. And as he would speak to them, he would tell some humorous thing, and they'd all laugh and they would enjoy it. He just had such an ability with them. The Tongan language, he mastered that. But it was amazing. Even though I understood nothing, I sat there and was just baffled by that. But I have some investment in that now. My daughter married a young man from South Auckland. She came home. Misa came home from her mission in Japan when we were serving as mission president and wife in Auckland. She came home, stayed with us for 8 months, met a young man in Auckland through the YSA units, and got engaged and married him. They're living in Provo, though. They're just down the road from you too now, I think. But so
wow.
I hope that it's a Malangahu. So her last name is now Malangahu, and I hope that Lars, which is his first name, will teach me more Tongan than Maloaupito and Fefehake, so that I can be able to dive a little bit more into this great Tongan culture, understand a little bit more about this wonderful thing that your father experienced. But
oh wow, I didn't know. I mean, she had a different boyfriend way back when she was my TA, so I hadn't heard about all these developments.
yes, well, and she would have never come. She would have never married him if we didn't serve our mission in New Zealand. So that was, because there was no reason for him to come here. Their paths crossing was just kind of a miraculous event. But so I'm going to have Tongan grandchildren, and my son married a young gal that he met at BYU Hawaii. She's graduated from BYU Hawaii. He was a student at BYU Hawaii, and she's from Hong Kong. And so I'm going to have my Chinese grandchildren and my Tongan grandchildren. Of course, we threw a little Japanese in there too, and there's a little bit of Palangi in there also, but that comes from me. But
it's all good. It's all good.
It's all right.
Well, Jeff, we want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for wearing your Aloha shirt for this occasion. Really appreciate you doing that.
All right. Well, it's great to talk to you, Alan, and thanks, Eddie, for setting this up. And great memories of Alan and his whole family, really, who were great, huge additions when they came, and whenever it was, 1978, 79, 80, when was that, Alan?
78, we came in, yep.
Okay. Yeah, it was a big addition to our community. So, all right. Well, thanks, Eddie.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you for your time. Aloha. Wow,
That was nostalgic.
It's good to bring these guys in and talk about the good old Moana Street days, those kind of things.
Yeah, we used to play touch football on the street. That same street you saw the picture of, barefoot. I had calluses that were about an inch thick on my feet because we'd be out there. We'd always go out barefoot everywhere we went. Everybody did.
Yeah, those days we had to get kids in the house. Now we're trying to get the kids out of the house,
Things have changed, haven't they?
Things have changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
In the evenings, we used to go looking for them. I said, where did they go? Nobody wants to come home. But, it's so different nowadays. So great to have Jeff join us. So we're going to jump back to our slides. I think we have several more to go, and then we'll go from there. So this is your wedding, Alan.
Yeah, Laie Hawaii Tempo. So again, another milestone in our lives that are tied to Laie. Of course, we were students at BYU Hawaii at the time, so that meant we also got to enjoy the Temple View apartments, which I think are on the next slide. But
yeah,
that's right. She graduated right after we got married. It was like a month and a half later she graduated. I had 2 more years left because of my mission. We met after my mission. I get asked all the time, did you meet her on your mission? And the answer is no. She wasn't a member of the church. She was in a different area. It wasn't even in the mission area. It was at BYU Hawaii where we met. So,
oh, wow. Nice.
So there's a picture of Dad and Mom and siblings and Harumi and myself on her graduation date.
Wow, wonderful. Wow. Good memories. Great pictures.
And life in TVA. I don't know if you remember the old. We're lucky if back in those days, if the oven didn't come off that front door.
So you had to cook and hold the cover at the same time. Is that what you were doing there?
That's probably what it was. I can't quite remember the story behind it, but it was important enough to be allowed to become a photo. So, these are all from in our little. It wasn't a studio; it was a one-bedroom. But the way it was, if you'll recall, is there's a wall, and then there's two entries. There were no doors there. The bedroom on the back was just behind a wall, but there were two open entries into that area. So it wasn't, somebody went in the kitchen, turned the light, it lit up the bedroom. And if somebody was making noise in the living area, the bedroom heard it all. The privacy was limited. I don't know about today and what the TVA looks like. They probably have souped it up quite a bit, and they're probably, state-of-the-art New York City mansion level apartments, but not back when I was a student in 89, 90, 91.
Yeah, those were memorable days. Good old TVA.
Yeah.
All right, more PCC pictures.
Well, I finally, after working with Van Auna, and we really were sad at his passing recently. It was a shock. I eventually moved back to PCC and got involved with the retail at the old marketplace that is now the central kitchen area. And you can see here that I got involved with tour guides again, but this time I was with the foreign language guides and working with the Japanese speaking guides and the Chinese and Korean speaking guides. And there's a picture of Konishiki there. He wasn't one of our students, no, but he got married, his first marriage. He married at the Polynesian Cultural Center. We were able to help that out with that. So these were good days. I graduated in 91, so I was a full-time employee for the PCC, supervising their foreign guides, kind of what Jimmy Mapu does now.
Yes.
And was there until 1992. So a student, then became full-time and had remained full-time since 1989 at the PCC. So there's your 33 years at PCC. Wow. During the 33rd year. These are just some photos.
Some of you guys that have been PCC for a long time, going to have to put a statue of you guys up there in the front somewhere. Holy smokes.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll do that. They'll probably they'll drive away the tourists if we do that.
But is this graduation?
Yep, I graduated with I started with an art degree, but after my mission, I just got very strong impressions that I would need to provide for my family, and the way I should do that is through business. So I switched my major and became a business administrative major. I got my business degree, bachelor's degree, and graduated in 91. Those are the pictures from that day.
Wow, beautiful. CAC.
That's the old sign at the front of the campus, right? That's not there anymore.
Yeah, you're right. It's different now. It's with that like a brick stone wall area. Yeah.
Then I stayed with PCC, but I worked out of the Waikiki office from 92 to 2013. That picture there on the upper left, that's Tahina Mo'o with me. He and I worked together. I don't know if you know Tahina.
Yes.
The bottom there, bottom left, that's Sione Kinney. He also, they also spoke Japanese, and we would do sales calls. And then on the right, you see these are actually pictures of us off in Japan doing trade shows, and Osamu Ozaki, who was in Laie for many years, is up there in that upper right, and we worked with him for many years. And Sione Kinney and Tahina. You keep going, you get Maurice Mo'o. You know Maurice, right? Doesn't he work with you folks?
Yeah, he manages our admissions and new student orientation area. So he's just 2 doors down from me. So yeah, he's in our area.
There's a couple more pictures here of Tahina Mo'o. He's, of course, on the West Coast. Here's Bobby Kaitoku. Anyone know the Kaitoku family? Did you know Bobby was our fierce Fijian warrior? See him there on the left, on the upper left?
Really good stuff. Yeah.
Well,
awesome.
used my artwork and painted him up a little bit so that he would look more like a Fijian warrior. But Bobby worked for us in Japan sales, and this is in Tokyo, doing a trade show out there at the PCC booth, and enjoying that. And then we started to take a lot of promo teams up to Japan, and you'll recognize some faces here. This is back in 1996, and there's Maurice.
Yes.
All dressed up. And
there in the middle.
Yeah.
And then on the top left there on the right picture, is that him next to you?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And you can see the Kikuyo Kalanis, and it's lots of individuals here that have been with PCC and BYU here, BYU Hawaii many years ago, and
Wow.
still have a very positive impact. But these are promo teams we take up there and they perform, and we sometimes do a week, sometimes 2-week performances, and pitch the PCC to the Japanese that were in those areas. This was in Osaka. They're great memories. But as I said earlier, I did over 80 trips to Japan, doing sales calls, taking promotional teams up, doing all kinds of events with the PCC, and it was just, and you talk about the special spirit that's at Laie. These kids would bring it with them, and so when we would be at performances, people would come up and say, "What is it about you? I see about you people. We feel something different." So they could feel the spirit that they carried with them, and we would do performances at some of the chapels in the area on Sundays, because we typically didn't perform on Sundays, and so we would do like musical firesides on a Sunday evening, and the investigators would come with the missionaries, and they would just be tears streaming down their face. We would perform some Sunday appropriate Polynesian dances, like really some of the hulas or some of the other dances that are very not the pounding of the drums or anything like that, because it was a Sabbath day, but you could feel the spirit through the dance, through the song, and in the testimonies that they shared, and people just felt it. It was just powerful. So it was a real privilege to take the sacred ground of Laie with us to Japan, and to share that through the students, through the performers and the musicians, with the people of Japan. And I had that opportunity multiple times. I would do the MC. I got thrown into that position on accident, and after that, they asked me to do it every time. I do it in Japanese.
Oh, wow.
They would perform the shows. I didn't do it in 1996 in this photo here, but I began doing it in the year 2000 and continued to do it until we went on our mission in 2017.
Wow, all these opportunities you've had with your work and after your mission and working at PCC and so forth. What a great blessing. More pictures of the promo team, I believe. Yeah,
that's sometimes we would just take Cielo. He was almost a promo team all by himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is when he was still with the PCC, but I took him up multiple times to do his fire dance and his coconut cracking demonstrations, and they just loved him and loved the performances he put on. But these are some photos from those days.
We have Alfred Grace there in the middle picture on the left column there.
Yeah, and at that time, the representative in Japan of the HTJ is in that bottom left photo at the karaoke. That's Masaki Sakamoto. He's also a BYU Hawaii alumni and a member of the church. And so our connections with BYU Hawaii even went through the Hawaii Tourism Authority in Japan. So there were connections there too.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wherever we travel, we run into alumni, right? We run into people that have gone to school here or worked at PCC or have lived here, and it's amazing the memories they remember about their experience and of course the spirit that this place holds for them.
Yeah, it does. See, Ellen Gay was your guest last week with Keith Obai, and I've gone up to the Japan many times with her, and you can see there that far right-hand side, there's a picture of her with myself on stage. Of course, I was just translating for the great Kumuhula Ellen Gay de la Rosa. She was the star. I was just the translator there. But
I'm just gonna apologize for a couple of our pictures a little blurred there.
That's just the snow flow, the heavy snow. that's a snow festival in Sapporo, Japan. We actually had a stage on a snow sculpture that our performers performed on. The very first day we performed, they did it traditionally barefoot, and they about died because they're literally dancing on snow blocks, hardened snow blocks. And eventually, Hawaii Tourism Authority that was there with us got them special brown socks that would blend in a little bit and allowed them to dance. They weren't barefoot, but they danced on there. We wanted to do Fire Knife, but Aloha and Hawaiian Airlines, which is also a co-sponsor of this event, they felt it wasn't traditional Hawaii, even though it's Samoa, right? But so we were only allowed to do hula, but they would literally do hula in snow flurries. Just and it would snow so hard that the snowflakes began to collect on the long eyelashes. The dancers would wear the long fake eyelashes. It would start collecting on their eyelashes when they come off the stage. Their eyelashes would be all covered with snow. But that was quite a memory. That was February 2013 that we went up and did that. Being able to represent the Polynesian Cultural Center, represent Laie, BYU Hawaii, all that Laie is about in Japan, was a true privilege for me, and to be a part of these promotional groups. I didn't dance. Gay may tell you I dance, but I don't dance. I didn't sing. I let the musicians do that because they could sing. But I would introduce the team, and I would introduce the different numbers.
Oh, that's great.
That's a privilege.
Yeah. And then these are this is your family. This is your children.
Yeah, so Jeff was talking about Misa. That's her as a baby on the far right on my chest. My wife Harumi holding her on the far left, bottom left. And then there's a picture of her when she's a little bit older. That might look more familiar to Jeff up in the middle. And then my son James. They're both in Provo right now, Provo area. And that's me graduating from the University of Hawaii Manoa with my Master's of Business Administration in 1994. And a picture of me talking at a BYU Hawaii devotional. I got to do that twice when I was serving as stake president of the Waipahu Hawaii stake, and that was a great privilege to do that. And that probably scared me more than anything else, having to stand there and they tell me, oh, and we're going to put it on BYU TV, and they did.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
Yeah. And this is the last slide. Here's serving with my wife and New Zealand Auckland mission. This is a picture on the South Island. We went there to do a Pacific area mission leader training that the area presidency in that area put on. So all the mission presidents serving in the Pacific area, including President Francis Ho Ching and his sweetheart, were in attendance for training. And it was a great privilege to be there with the Ho Chings. Of course, they just returned home a few months ago, as you know.
Right.
But we had a great opportunity to rub shoulders with them every 6 months while we were out there serving. President Elder Taio Ali'i was also serving when we first arrived in Papua New Guinea, so we got to rub shoulders with him a bit. In fact, I served in a tri-stake leadership group with the youth in YSA when he was the stake president in the Makakilo stake, and I was in Waipahu. So we worked with Elder Taio Ali'i extensively during that time. So it's kind of a small world, but that's where we were from 2017 to 2020, and returned home in the middle of COVID and back to PCC. So here we are.
Wow, what a whirlwind of trips that you went about in your mission, and the time that you folks moved here from Canada, and so many experiences you've had thus far, Alan. You and your wife and your family. What a great blessing you went through in your life so far.
Well, it all, everything goes back to Laie, BYU Hawaii, yes. The Polynesian Cultural Center, the Laie Hawaii Temple. That really is my sacred ground. That's where everything pivoted and changed for me, and that's from that point forward to where we are today. That has been the source of strength and blessings beyond galore. I mean, I met my wife at BYU Hawaii. I gained my testimony at BYU Hawaii. I left on my mission from BYU Hawaii. I got my degree from BYU Hawaii. I got my work, my employment at the Polynesian Cultural Center. I married in the Laie Hawaii Temple. Everything is associated with that. It is literally sacred ground. And I really feel that way about it. And I hope that we all think of that as Laie in that context.
Wow, that's wonderful. That's great. I just wanted to share with you some of the comments. I don't know if you're able to see it from your computer, but we have Celeste and Lay saying talofa and aloha from Anaheim, California. So wanted to share their thoughts. Let's see. They also said, my daughter Auburn Bertuccini attended BYU Hawaii 2016 to 2020. She's now a teacher in Utah using her degree. Thank you.
Yeah, that's exactly the truth. BYU just blesses and blesses and blesses.
And then we also have, let's see, Sonoma Goodwill. Does that name ring a bell, Alan? Appreciates this so much. I worked with Brother Walker's father when I taught in the English department at BYU Hawaii beginning fall semester 1995. Wow.
Yeah, I'm sure there's several, because he taught from 1978 through 2006. So he did do a few teaching exchanges at Provo, but he, for the most part, was in Laie. So there are probably more BYU Hawaii alumni that are watching this that know him than know me, because he was on campus for years and years and years. But I'll tell you this, Eddie, when I started to go to school, they told me, if you take English classes, don't take Professor Walker. He's the hardest professor. So you know what? I avoided his classes.
That's why they all went to Sister Elkington's class like myself.
That's where I went, Sister Elkington. Where I went. My dad told me, go to her class. so, yeah, he was a hard grader. He was a good teacher. Everyone, if you were an English major, you got a lot of him, especially towards the later years, because he was a full professor and he got to choose more of the courses he taught. But he was a really good teacher, is what people would tell you. I never had his class, but he was a strict teacher, and you had to earn your grades. So, I don't think I was the best student when I started at BYU Hawaii. As you heard, I used to wing my classes, so I avoided him as much as possible. But I'm glad that Sister Goodwill was able to work with him. I hope his memories are positive.
Oh, that's too funny. Okay, so we also have one here, a comment from Prince Eldon del Rosario. In behalf of all the New Zealand Auckland Mission Return Missionaries, we express our love and gratitude to our mission president, James Allen Walker and Harumi Walker. We are delighted to serve alongside this wonderful couple.
I remember Elder Del Rosario, and he's about to marry a recent graduate from BYU Hawaii.
Wow.
So,
man, yeah. We're everywhere.
Yeah, we are everywhere. And right now there are about 30 students, accounts, I'm not sure the exact count, but about 30 that are return missionaries from our time that we served at the New Zealand Auckland Mission that are at BYU Hawaii right now. And so several of them have come by and visited me at my office at the PCC. And there are several more who are coming that stayed with us. And a lot of them were there when you did the recruiting trip. And I told them, you guys, if you want to go somewhere where you can really make a difference, BYU Hawaii. So I was telling our missionaries, you can go. I know you're supposed to be proselyting, but tonight you can come to this special meeting that they're doing. So we had several missionaries there. You remember that, right, Eddie, on that night that you met in Auckland when you were there while we were serving in Auckland. But
well, we really appreciate you for doing that. And man, that was a wonderful gathering.
It was.
Well, our time is almost spent, Alan. However, we have one guy that's going to join us here. He finally paid his bill, I guess, and the internet finally worked. So let's see if we can bring him on. You recognize this guy?
Yeah, I recognize the face, but there's
you need a little more hair and a little less weight. I lived across the street from you, Alan, for most of my life. So
I know Michael Smith. Oh my goodness, I should have known by the Texas behind you.
Yeah, of course. Your brother, your brother's an alumni of UT. He was in my ward here, Scott.
Yeah, he went and got his master's degree. I think his MBA up there, if I recall.
He did. I was his bishop when he was here.
Were you his bishop? No wonder he turned out the way he did. No, he's excellent. He's in Washington State now, doing exceptionally well. But
awesome.
I remember, Mike. When I got home from my mission, and I was in the BYU Hawaii singles ward. We were in the same ward, and I remember you were there. Isn't that where you met your sweetheart when you were there?
I did, and she's a Chrisman. She's a niece to Gene Chrisman and Moana, and we left on our missions, and she served in Auckland, New Zealand, actually, right after that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I didn't make that connection, but that's many years ago. That's really neat that she served in Auckland. Wow.
And I forgot to tell you, Michael, that's how we're connected, because my oldest son is married to Talia.
Right.
Chuck and Natalie Christmas, you know.
That's right.
That's
Funny how
small
this,
world.
Yeah,
right, Alan? This place just ties everybody together.
definitely.
That sure does. It is a blessed place. That I can't understate that.
Yeah, and Eddie, Alan and I probably haven't seen each other for 30 years. So, you know, we keep track of each other through other people every once in a while, but it's always
So,
good to.
Michael, did he show you guys how to play hockey and all that kind of
I'll
stuff?
tell you, when Alan, three sports that I remember Alan for. First of all, hockey, because I know when you first came, you were missing Canada. None of us knew a thing about hockey, had never seen snow. So Alan, I always thought Alan would be an artist someday because you used to draw all of the logos for all the different hockey teams all over your driveway and stuff. And then he taught a bunch of us on Moana Street how to play hockey. We didn't know what high sticking was or offsides or whatever. And he got his stuff out, and we would go over there and try and play our Hawaiian version of hockey in his driveway there. So that was good. I think they even came out and did a story on us from the news because it was such a novelty to be doing that in Hawaii.
Yeah, that's right. You remember right. That's something that was in the, I think it was the Star Bulletin, which
Yep.
now the Star Advertiser, that they put it on the front page of the Star Bulletin. Can you believe that? Must not have been a very newsy day.
I don't know. I guess hockey in Hawaii is odd enough that it may make for front page news, you know.
Well, I
Anyway,
remember my mom told me that they picked the Associated Press picked that story up. So I don't know if it got picked up by anyone else, but that was just quite.
Well, there was a group of us, you know, local kids, all kinds of kids that learned about hockey through Alan at that time. And then the other thing was that Alan was always willing to work with a bunch of the younger kids there. And so we had a group of us that were a little younger than Alan. And then he had his younger brother and his younger brother's friends, and Alan would be their quarterback, and the younger kids would challenge us to a game as long as Alan was the quarterback. And I don't think we ever won because with Alan running the show for those younger kids, he had plays. We just went out there and thought we could beat them. And between, it was one of the Funaki boys, and it was Kalani Lowe and Alan's brother Scott, and they would run all over and run plays, and they would beat us out in the fields out there in front. So that was always a good time. And then when Alan left on his mission, then his driveway became free for the rest of us to go play on his basketball hoop. They had the best hoop in town, so we would go, and we were glad when he left because then we could go play on his hoop. I always think that hoop was like an inch or two short because kids that couldn't dunk could dunk on that hoop there, Alan. I don't know if that's true or not, but
I could dunk on that hoop back in the day. I can't even get up to 8 feet now, but that's when I could dunk on it.
Anyway,
Yeah. Those are fun memories.
Good times.
I tell people about tennis too, but I don't want to tell you the story about when I tried to walk onto the BYU Hawaii Tennis Club, and Coach Porter just had Eddie out there, and he would just challenge you. If you could win one point from him, he would consider you. And he served. Eddie served, and every single serve he drove on me, I couldn't return it. And when we're done that, he said, "Thank you for coming."
Eddie, you didn't know you ended Alan's career before it even got started.
I'm so sorry.
No, he just taught me some humility because, I was beating up on these younger kids, right? Playing football and, Mike and the younger kids, and then hockey. Nobody knew how to play hockey. I knew how to play hockey, so I could dominate out there. So I got a little bit, maybe thinking I knew what I was doing, and I play a little bit of tennis on the BYU Hawaii campus tennis courts with buddies at school when I was at Kahuku, and I thought I'm pretty good at this until I stood across from Eddie, and after that it's like, you know what? I learned what humility is, and I think it was shortly thereafter that I received my witness through the power of the Holy Ghost at the church of Sweden. I had to be humble first, and I think Eddie helped it go that direction.
There you go. That works. Well, I do remember when we were in the same ward when you got off your mission, and I was getting ready to go, and to see guys, that were close to us in age coming home from their missions for me was a big deal. I remember you when you were working at PCC as a guide and watching you speak Japanese, and I was like, I want to learn another language. I want to be able to do that kind of stuff. And so anyway, it was good time, good memories. You were a good example.
Well, thank you. Well, I sure enjoyed being shoulder to shoulder with you in the singles ward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Michael. I really appreciate you
Yeah,
tuning
no
in.
problem. Glad to come on.
Nice Aloha shirt, by the way.
No, well, it's Friday. I got to throw it on. Anyway.
Yeah, Jeff had a nice Aloha shirt too. So thank you for doing that for our guests today.
Not a problem.
All right. Well, I appreciate you tuning in, and we'll be in touch.
Sounds good. Thanks. Good to see you both.
Thanks,
Thank
Michael.
you, Michael.
Appreciate it.
Aloha. All right, Alan. I think our time is well spent, and I really want to thank you for your time. Before we finish, I just want to share one comment here on the post. One of your missionaries, we hired him to work with us. His name is Delvin Kyle. So he wrote on here, he said, "Hi, President Walker, I appreciate you and all that you've done for me on the mission. You are the best. Sorry for not catching up with you yet, but we'll for sure. Aloha."
Yes, I know Dalvin well, and he served his full 2 years with us, and he hasn't come and visited me yet. That's why he wrote that thing at the bottom. So, Dalvin, if you're watching, come and see me. I'm not that hard to come and find. You know that area. I'm waiting. I do a Facebook alumni page for our returned missionaries. We have about 460 of them that are on that page. Every day I'll put out a spiritual thought, and then I also share pictures and photos and video clips from the mission. And so when they come by my office, and I'll take pictures with them and I'll post it. So we're waiting to post Dalvin Kyle.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. That's good. Yeah, we'll remind him too. He just works right outside my door here, so we'll remind him of that. And then Jeffrey Shumway also he said, "My son was called to Auckland, but serving in Oakland, San Francisco Mission, speaking Tongan." So there you go. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Auckland, right? That's almost how they pronounce it in New Zealand. So
Yeah.
same mission, different spelling. He was able to do Tongan. He was supposed to do Tongan there too. Hopefully he'll get there. Hopefully the borders will open up and he'll be able to complete his mission there.
Yeah. So thank you again, Alan. Throughout because this is recorded, you just check your, your podcasts. People will be watching that at their own convenience. It's probably a lot different time in Japan, so maybe some of those will watch and comment later. So just keep watching that, and you'll be able to see a lot of your missionaries or friends or families of your wife that will be chiming in with some chats and comments for you.
Will do.
All right, my brother, you hang on for a little bit while I finish off, and then we'll wrap this up. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining in on our Aloha Friday podcast here with Alan Walker. So grateful to have all of you. Again, just a reminder to go on to Ohana Network to be able to update or create your profile so we can all stay connected and be communicating together. So ohana.byuh.edu. And our guest for next week's Friday's podcast is David Villanueva. He's the president of our, CCH BYU Hawaii alumni chapter in the Philippines. So he will be joining us next week, along with his wife and others that are from there. And we're looking forward to talking with him and all the fun activities and things that our alumni are doing in the Philippines. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you for our guests, Alan Walker, and for our surprise guests, Jeff Shumway and Michael Smith, for joining us today. Have a wonderful weekend, and aloha.